Welcome to the Wise Owl Knits Fibercast. I'm your host, Cheryl Beckrich, and thank you so much for watching today. Welcome back if you've been here before, and I'm glad to have you here if this is your first time. On this Fibercast, I talk about all my yarny adventures, crafty adventures. I have fallen down a deep rabbit hole now, so we'll get into that later in the Fibercast. You can find me at wiseowlknits.com. I'm also Wise Owl Knits with 2 S's on Instagram, Wise Owl Knits on YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest, all the places. However, I'm mostly on Instagram, and you can always find me on my website. I'm also on Telegram, and I'm doing a test knit on Telegram right now, and I may start a group on Telegram for Wise Owl Knits too. So watch for that, possibly in the future. Today I am going to talk about what I'm wearing, designs that I'm working on, comments. I've got a word definition that I learned at work, so we'll talk about that, and then we'll move on to the deep rabbit hole that I've fallen into. Today I am wearing my cable top Boxy, and it's got a cable here on each shoulder and then goes to a short sleeve that's 3/4 length. Nice roomy boxy pullover with a turtleneck. This one is knit, I believe it's in Madeline Tosh, but I'm not 100% certain. It is on my website what it is. I've had it done for a while, kind of a tonal blue, merino wool, very soft, very warm, and just so wearable. Nice and comfy. So that's the cable top Boxy, and you can find it and all of my patterns on wiseowlknits.com. So we'll move on to my designs. I just finished another sample for the Keeping Time pullover. This pattern is in testing right now, and got lots of good testers over there. Ushi, Cheryl B, Susan, quite a few others. Those 3 in particular have shown me pictures of their projects, so that is nice to see. And there may be a few others. I'll add in the pictures so that you can see. So that's the Keeping Time sweater, and hopefully that will be out and ready for you to get and start knitting by the first of the year. I'm also working on the children's version of the wildflower sweater. That is here. I did show this the last time too. I will be starting a knit along for this in March, and for the knit along, there will be kits available from Mystery Mouse Yarns. Holly has so graciously agreed to make some kits for this, but it's also a good sweater that you can use up minis, you can use up just leftovers, fingering weight yarn. And so this pattern will be available. It's already available in adult sizes, but it will be available in babies, kids, teens, all of the sizes, so you can make one for all the women in your life. I do have another knit along that's coming up too, and that is for the Solomon poncho. It's big and a little unyieldy. Let me get the collar fixed the way it should be. The Solomon poncho is knit in a large rectangle from end to end, and it's got a cutout halfway through for the neckline, and then you pick up stitches for the rib collar. It's got a faux button band. Oh, Barley. It's got a faux button band, so you don't have to worry about any gaps, but you have the pretty buttons with that. Hang on just a second. There may or may not have been something in our backyard. Barley's pretty sure that there is something, and it could have been a raccoon or a deer or a possum. He's quite the hunter, not always super fast, but he's definitely very interested in all the wildlife. So anyway, the Solomon poncho, the knit along starts right after Christmas, December 26th. And if you're looking for a nice winter project and you love cables and like something that's going to keep you warm, you might want to try the Solomon poncho. It's knit in DK weight yarn, and this is Southlander from Skeins in New Zealand. Great prices from Skeins, and Southlander a wonderful yarn. It is exactly the same weight as Cascade 220. So the naming and the yarn grading between the countries is a little bit off, but a light worsted weight yarn would work perfect for this. Obviously it's not like a fitted sweater. Gauge is somewhat important, but it's one of those projects that if you're a little bit off, it's not going to make any difference, and you might just end up with something a little bit larger or a little bit smaller, but it's a nice oversized fit anyway, so you're probably going to be okay as long as you're in the ballpark. So that is the Solomon poncho, and those are the two knit alongs that I have coming up. Solomon poncho starting right after Christmas, December 26th, and then Wildflower beginning on March 1st. So if you're looking to plan your knitting year out, put those both on your calendar and you can knit along with us. That'd be great. Okay, we'll move on to the comments. Didn't have a lot of comments from last week, but I did have one that I thought was really interesting, and that is from So Beautiful, and that's SEWSO and the word beautiful. And she commented on the highlighter tape that I had mentioned. I had gotten some highlighter tape in my sock adventure from Carista at Sweet Mountain Crafts, and I mentioned that it was one of my favorite notions. And I like it because it is reusable. You can stick it on your chart or your line in the written instructions and then move it as you move along in your knitting. And one piece of tape you can fold over the end so you can easily take it off and stick it again. It'll last your whole project unless your project is really long or you're touching it with food on your hands or something like that. But it's a great product, and I love how it doesn't take much and it will last you for a long time. Well, she had mentioned that she didn't know how it worked and that she didn't know you could stick it over and over again. She thought it was more like regular Scotch tape, where if you stuck it to a piece of paper, it was stuck there and you couldn't remove it without ripping the paper. And I kind of wondered about that, and I looked at my tape. I've got two of them here, two different versions. The blue one says a reusable alternative to permanent highlighter pens. So this one does say that it's reusable. Perhaps the first one I ever saw said it was reusable. This one says nothing about it being reusable. Highlighter tape, economy size. So I can understand why she might have been confused and not thought that it was like Post-it notes where you can stick it again and again. So I'm glad that I was able to clear that up for her, and she can get herself some highlighter tape and always save her place in the pattern. I think she said she was using hair clips to mark her place, so this will be a big upgrade for So So Beautiful. Good comment. Now moving on to my word of the Fibercast. I'm not going to say word of the week because I don't do this every week and I may not always have a word. But there was a word that I kept hearing in context of religious things, and I wasn't sure what it meant, and the word was fiat. Now, when I was in high school, we had a Fiat car. It was a little green Fiat. My dad loved it. I learned how to drive in it, and it was manual transmission. We lived up on the top of a hill, so when I drove up Buena Vista Street and had to stop at the stoplight, I had to quickly learn how to use my brake and clutch and not roll back and hit the person behind me. So learned how to drive in the Fiat. I think I can still drive a manual transmission vehicle, though I haven't had to do it for a long time. My dad just thought that car was the coolest. It wasn't really a sports car, but it was the closest thing that he had had to a sports car. And he was somebody that, when he was much, much younger, he was a volunteer fireman. And if there was some kind of a disaster or storm damage or a fire, he always wanted to go see it. So we had a ton of rain and it was flooding down by the river. And so he got in the car, and I think he took my brother with him. I don't think I was with them. But he was driving around looking at the flood and drove really fast through a big puddle, and he cracked the engine block. That was the end of the Fiat. So I don't remember my mom getting super upset about it or anything. But she probably should have. He ruined the car. I don't know that that would be covered by insurance, but who knows? I was a kid at the time, so I didn't have to worry about it. And if they worried about it, they didn't let us know, which was really a good thing. So anyway, the definition of fiat from Merriam-Webster is an authoritative or arbitrary order, decree, government by fiat. The second definition is an authoritative determination, dictate, a fiat of conscience. Like your conscience is determining or dictating how you will act or react. The third definition is a command or act of will that creates something without, or as if without, further effort. According to the Bible, the world was created by fiat. And that is the context that I heard the word, but I couldn't determine the meaning by just listening to the context of it. So I looked it up, and then I started hearing it all over the place. And my coworker Ann and I talked about it several times, and I ended up getting a picture for my office with the word fiat in it, and I took a picture of that, so I'll add that here. So that is how I came up with and learned the definition of fiat. Now after that, I was talking to my son who works in blockchain, cryptocurrency type things, and he was talking about fiat in the context of money. And I knew that he was indicating that money issued by the government was fiat money. And so now, after reading these definitions, I kind of get that. The government says this is money and it has value because we say that it has value. So that's fiat money, as opposed to cryptocurrency, which the value is determined by all of the people that own it and what they feel that it's worth. That may not be exactly right, but that's my perception of it right now. So, the word of the week, fiat, or the word of the podcast, fiat. Now we'll move on to the deep, deep rabbit hole. And that is, I have started to use or learn how to use my circular sock machine. I bought this circular sock machine. It's an antique machine, a LeGare 47. I think I've said it before, LeGare, but I believe after watching lots and lots of videos for the last few days that it is LeGare. And it's over 100 years old. Works perfectly fine. I am having some problems learning how to do heels and toes. Well, I haven't even gotten to the toes yet, but the toes and heels work basically the same way. They are, in the method that I'm trying to learn to use, they are essentially short row heels. So I get the process and how it's supposed to work. Actually executing it in the correct way, I'm having a bit of a problem with. I picked last weekend and this weekend to learn how to do it because both weekends my husband was going to be out of town. Last week he was camping with Boy Scouts. This week is opening day of deer hunting is tomorrow. So I thought I would take advantage of this time, knowing myself and how I react if I can't figure something out, that I have to just keep going and going and going until I get it figured out. I have a hard time walking away and letting go. And I had a feeling that this might be one of those times. And it is. So I did take just a little break to record, but basically I'm going to get back on it and watch some more videos. I did learn how to make a tube. I can crank a whole tube. That's not that hard. I figured out how to change the tension and different yarns. All the sock yarns, though they're all called fingering weight, they're all slightly different. Some are a little bit smaller, some are a little bit bigger, some are a little fuzzier. So you have to kind of figure out what tension setting each one should be at. Just like with the sweater, that gauge and tension is important as how they fit and how large a tube you make or how small a tube you make and how many rounds per inch you have. So when you're using a new yarn, I think it's important to make a gauge swatch and measure it and just eyeball it to see if you like the fabric that it makes. So I've done a little bit of that with several different yarns. I have some Patton's Croy that I tried and I thought, well, this is a good kind of all around sock yarn, it probably will work well. Well, it's a bit plumper than the other yarns that I've tried, and I'm fine while I'm making just the tube, but once I get to the heels, I start dropping stitches. Part of that is definitely user error because sometimes I forget to put the weight back on, a lot of it's me, and I've just got to get my process down and learn how to do it. But I have made a few things. Made that tube. I made some cute little pumpkins. So this is just a tube, and then you gather up the stitches, with the needle and some yarn on both ends and cinch it together, put some stuffing in, and then run your yarn around to make the little bumps of the pumpkin. And then you can glue a little stick in the top. So I think this is really cute. I'm gonna make some more of those out of the tube that I made. I made this one too, but I didn't put as much stuffing in it, and it doesn't have a stem yet. I have some new stuffing on order because what I have right now is some foam that's just kind of shredded into pieces, and it's really messy to use. Plus, some of the pieces are big and some of them are small, and I feel like you can see them. You probably can't there, but if you were looking at this in person, it's a little bit lumpy because of the way that the fill is made. So I've got those. While I'm waiting for that to come, I've made some using part of the tube that I made some little pumpkins, so it's ready for the stuffing to go in, and it's got strands of yarn through the end so that I can cinch it up once it's stuffed and then wrap around to make the sides of the pumpkin, the little sections. So I've done those. I think I have enough to make, I made 3 little ones, or I've separated 3 little sections so far, and I probably have enough left of that tube to make 6 to 8 more pumpkins. I might make some that are a little bit taller too, so that'll be fun. I also did a tube and made a headband, and I learned how to Kitchener it together from the wrong side. And then, because this is a tube, it's all closed up, I could only do so many of them from the wrong side. I had to do the last few from the right side. So my Kitchener skills were good. And this is some yarn that is kind of donated yarn. And so I will donate the things that I make from that. So nice warm double thick headband. And I had to use my row gauge to know how long to make it. I wanted to make it 22 inches around, and it was 10 rounds per inch, so I cranked 220 rounds and then Kitchenered it together. So that headband is there. I also made a little hat just so I could work on the hung hem, which is kind of a staple of most of the easy sock patterns. The hung hem, you crank twice as many rounds as you want the hem to be, and it's folded over, and you pick up stitches and put them back up on the needles and then keep going. So the hung hem I've kind of got down. I'm not perfect at it yet, but I'm pretty good. So I made this little hat that is just really small, so kind of preemie size hat, but I'm going to try this again at a looser gauge and see if I can make a little bit larger one. I did this on my 64 needle cylinder. I've also got a 72 needle cylinder, but I haven't I haven't used it yet, and you have to take the needles out of one and put it in the other, and I just figured I'm gonna leave it on the 64 because that's what I want for the socks that I'm doing. So anyway, I've got a video. I thought I will do a video of my first sock, and a couple things happened. Well, the heel was a fail, but my camera also stopped recording before I even got to the heel. So you don't get to see the epic fail because of the epic fail of the camera. But if you want to watch it, great. If you're not interested, that's perfectly okay. That's why I thought I will put that at the end, and that way you can watch if you want to. Laugh at my ineptitude on working my circular sock machine. Thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate you being here with me. Like I said before, if you're interested, keep watching. If not, that's okay too. But please come back again. Subscribe, like, comment. Check out my website. Lots of patterns and a few accessories on there. And I hope to see you next time. Thank you all. Goodbye. This is my first attempt at a full sock on my LeGare circular sock machine. I thought I would just record it. It probably will not turn out, but we're going to give it a try. First thing I'm going to do is crank my crank around until just before the green mark, which is my starting mark, and I'm going to hang my cast-on bonnet. I have a 64 stitch cylinder, and this sock bonnet has 32 little picot loops that are actually made out of fishing line. They are going to go on every other hook. So we'll start off doing that. As you go around, you need to just make sure all of the hook flaps are in the down position so that the hooks are open. You can tell the hooks are open by looking at them and also by feeling. Until I get used to doing this, I think I'm going to do both a visual and a feeling check each time before I move on to the next step. As you put this bonnet on, it helps to have a little bit of tension on it, though not too much. You don't want to add your weight until you get it all hung. My bonnet has a little key ring at the bottom that you can hook the weight onto. Some of them don't, and I gather just from watching videos, and I have watched a lot of videos, that if it doesn't have a ring on the bottom, that you kind of have to pull down on it the first few rounds until you can put your buckle on and add your weights using your buckle. This little tool, it's kind of like a dentist tool. One side has a pick, the other side has a crochet hook. I can't see the camera, so I don't know if you could see that demonstration at all. So I've got most of my hooks on. Some of the needles are down in the cylinder, so I have to crank around before I can add those on. I think I can do another couple on this end, so let me do those now. I'm going to wait on that one because I can't tell if the hooks are open or not. So I'm going to add in my waste yarn. And I'm going to do about 10 rounds with the waste yarn. I'm threading the yarn through the mast, which I don't believe you can see. But I come down here to the football, and I don't think that is the correct name, but that's something that one of the people demonstrating called it, and this part of it's kind of football shaped. So I thought that was an easy thing to remember. Some of these on the newer machines are slotted. Mine is not, so I sometimes wet the yarn and pull it through that way, and other times I just use my hook to bring it through. Okay. So I am going to hold on to that and crank around just a little bit. I'm going to put my weight on the bottom of my sock bonnet. Hold on to this, and I'm going to crank around. That's why I can't put my counter there, it hits. Until these hooks are in the upright position, and then I'll hang the rest of the bonnet. I'm going to just pull up on my weight so that I don't have too much tension to be able to get those on. Okay, so those are all hung. I'm just going to do a visual check to make sure all of my hooks are open. This one is closed, so we'll open that. Okay, it looks like we're good. So I'm going to crank about 10 rounds with my waste yarn. Sometimes there's a little bit of a problem with the waste yarn, like right here. We've gotten a couple of lengths of yarn in front of the needles. I'm going to pull up a piece of yarn from below. Then I'm also going to pull up my sock bonnet here. In the waste yarn, things don't have to be perfect. So make sure that this only has one on it. I think we can rectify this situation fairly quickly. And you can just kind of visually look to see that all the hooks are picking up and that it looks like it's knitting correctly, and I think we're good on that. I'm going to be doing a hung hem sock. I'm going to come around here and I'm going to go just past my starting point, and I am going to add in a ripcord, which is fishing line. So I will cut the waste yarn, and I'm going to pull that through, and I want to make sure that it is on the outside of this first hook because I don't want to have a hole, but I'll just stuff that down inside, and then I will thread through my fishing line. I don't know if this has to go through the mast or not, but I'm going to do that just because I don't really know, and everything else did, so I may put a little bit of I'll stick this under my book that's sitting here. That was my holder up of my counter, just to keep the yarn out of the way. I'm going to thread the fishing line through my football. I may have to come in with my hook on that one too. And I want to make sure it is behind this first hook. And I'm going to just do one round slowly with the ripcord. This ripcord is a way that makes it easier to see the stitches that need to be picked up when you do the hung hem. And it also is really, really easy to pull out afterwards, which is handy. So I've got that past the first stitch, and I'm going to pull it out, and then we're going to start with our regular yarn. And I am going to do 40 rounds for my hung hem, which will equate to 20 rounds that are showing. So it'll be a double thickness hem, 20 rounds on the outside and 20 rounds on the inside. I thought I would do this first pair of socks to fit my husband. I did a swatch with found the tension that I liked and cranked 30 rounds and measured it, and it was 3 inches, so that's 10 rounds per inch. And I've got a nice chart that tells me how long I have to make the foot at that tension. I can poke that through. I did. I got it through. And I want to make sure that it is on the outside of these needles. I'm going to just stick that inside. I'll hold on to that, and I'm going to crank 30 rounds. So I need to reset my counter to 0. Just holding on to those to get it started, but then I can just crank away 30 rounds. Or 40 rounds is what I want. About 30. I'm halfway there. $38, $39, we're on our 40 right there. We'll come just past that. And now we're going to pick up the loops to hang the hem. So I do need to take off my weight to do that. Just set that on the ground. I did learn this handy little tip that you can use a beer cozy to keep your weights from falling off. So I had to just put a hole in the top so that I could hang it through, and then I just pull down the cozy and everything stays together. It seems like, from what I've watched so far, I'm gonna go turn that little filter off. Is there somebody out there, Barley? Okay, so we are going to do this very carefully because we don't want to lose any stitches off of our hooks, but we also want to find the stitches that need to be pulled up, and we have to line those up with the corresponding needle. We don't want the hem to be twisted. And other than visually looking at it and running our eyes up the line of stitches, I don't have a better trick than that. You can see the fishing line is this red color. Let me get my pointy side. So we're going to pick up the loop that is underneath two loops of fishing line, and we're going to just come straight up and hook that on the needle. Okay, and then we're going to go one stitch at a time and continue doing that. For my first sock, I probably should have chosen a yarn that was all the same color. 'Cause I have different colors in between here. Kind of at a gold section right here, or gold and purple. I'm going to make sure my lights are on as bright as they can be. It does help to have the red fishing line in there because at least I can see red on either side. This is probably the slowest part of the process. I've done it once I did a little baby hat, or really a preemie hat, because I did that on the 64 stitch cylinder also, so it's not very big. I may try and do another one and loosen the tension so that it actually might fit a baby that's not premature. We just keep going along patiently and hanging them all up. You can use either side of your tool to do this. The side without a hook on it seems easier to me, but you do what works for you. I think I would have a really difficult time seeing this if I did not use the fishing line. So I'm pretty glad I chose to do that. You know, it's really good to watch a lot of different tutorials for anything because you can take something away from each of them. And then you can just experiment to see what works best for you. I am definitely still in that experimental stage right now. My actual sock yarn, I think, is a 2-ply, and it's a little bit splitty. So hopefully I get both plies on the hook. But you know, it's my first pair, so we'll do the best that we can. Let's see here. There we go. We're getting there. We're getting close. Oh, I feel like I almost picked up the fishing line that time. The video that I watched that used this was from the Lefty Knitter. She's got, I'm sure we have very different political views, but I do like her circular sock machine videos a lot. She used a 65-pound test for her fishing line. My husband had some 50 pounds, so I don't know, is that thicker or thinner? I'm not sure. But it seems pretty flexible and strong, so that's, and we had that here, so that's what I'm using. Hers was yellow. That might even be better. But this red, as long as it's contrasting with the main yarn of the sock, then I think the actual color doesn't matter too much. We're getting there. And now I'm kind of to the point where the remainder of the stitches are too far down in the cylinder. Though I may be able to do a couple here on this end. think that is about as much as I can do right now. I am going to reset my counter because I think I will do, I have 20 rows there. I think I'm going to do another 50 rows before I start the heel. So we'll reset this to 0. I called them rows, they're really rounds. We'll just go slowly around this because there are 2 loops on each one. And we also need, oh, I might have screwed up. I didn't put a weight on. I'm going to pull down and get it a little bit further. I think I did mess up, but we'll see if that's fixable. I'm going to hang the rest of this hem. Three more loops to pull up here. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to see what happened over here. I don't know if that's fixable or not. I'm going to keep going though because I want to get to the heel. So I'm going to add my weights on and we'll see what happens here. May have to do a little hand stitching to close up the hem. And let me make sure this goes around easily. Okay, I think we're okay. We're going to go for 50 rounds and then we'll deal with a little bit of a mess up on the hem later on once we can actually see what's going on there. As you crank, you know, obviously the sock is getting longer and longer and you want to make sure that the weight does not hit the floor. There is a buckle that we're going to put on the sock in just a minute so that we can move the weights up. $45. My yarn has a little starting to come apart on the ball, so I'm going to fix that.